Hey, it's Aaron, Metal Theologian. So it's kind of been a while since I made a video, but I'm sort of in this weird place musically, though, you know what I mean? Probably most of what I have to talk about is sort of rediscovering this old band from, like, when I was younger. But in the meantime, this is something I actually just got this kind of blind because Bananas, like, hit me up one day. Like, I assume if you're watching this, you're subscribed to Grown Man Record Night. So anyway, yeah, he, like, hit me up one day and was like, hey, man, you need to check this out. I'm not even sure what this is called. Like, apparently it's called Dead. It says Dead, Raving, Drooling, whatever that means. But yeah, written and produced by Dead. Anyway, this record is awesome, man. And I don't really know anything about these guys. Like I said, I kind of just blind bought it. You know, it's like back in the old days. People romanticize the fucking 80s and shit. You know? It's like someone told you something was good, you had to check it out, you know? Also, it's on pink vinyl. Maybe you'll see when I flip it. Yeah, anyway, I've sort of been delving back into, like, what remains of my old punk section, and I've been kind of hung up on the Meteors and the Residents, and to a lesser degree on the Stranglers. Like, I fucking grabbed this at a local place. I've been really into it. I don't really have very much, so I have this and a Peaches 45 with Go Buddy Go. Anyway, that kind of goes to the other thing. For some reason, I've, like, been really wanting to hear the Meteors. And, like, when I was in high school, I fucking loved the Meteors. But I kind of got tired of them. I mean, Jesus, probably when I was, like, 20, 21, 22. And I hadn't really thought about them since. Like, those records are long gone and shit. And I actually kind of had a few of the LPs and a couple 12 inches, but I never had any of the 45s. So, like, since I wanted to hear these records, but I don't have them anymore, like, the main one that I listened to, the first one that I got when I was still living in Germany in, like, 88 or something like that, was, Only the Meteors or Pure Psychobilly, which I assumed was a comp. I believe was a comp, but I just not too long ago when I started, like, looking into them, trying to say, do I really want to hear this shit, or am I just, like, playing some, like, nostalgic head game with myself, you know? Because I don't really like that sort of thing, right? So I listened, and I just, like, kept getting more and more interested, right? So anyway, I look at this record, and apparently, like, half the record was re-recordings of earlier songs, right? So I do the record collector thing, right? Which is, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should go, like, search out, instead of, like, going and rebuying the records I had in the past. I did a little of that, too. It's still on its way in the mail, but maybe I should check out the original versions of some of these other ones. So I have 345 shit I've never owned before. So when I got into this shit and, like, started geeking out over it really hard and everything, of course I messaged John, Bip Bop Boom, to whom I hope you're also subscribed. Because he's, like, the expert in anything having to do with, like, rockabilly shit. I mean, the most I ever really got into the shit is I listened to Meteors a lot. I listened to King Kurt a lot. I fucking loved King Kurt when I was, like, 16, 17. And I kind of like the Guana Bats, too. And beyond that, I mean, I like the Stray Cats. I actually saw the Stray Cats live in, like, 1992, maybe, something like that, when I was in college. Anyway, though, as far as, like, sort of the crazier shit goes, it was really, the big ones for me were really the Meteors and King Kurt. And, it all kind of became too goofy for me. And, like, right now, King Kurt is still kind of too goofy for me. It's like, I tend to be really hostile to that whole comedy thing when in my videos and shit, because I've kind of been that way for a long time. But, like, when I was in my teens, I was really into that shit, whether it was King Kurt or, like, Anthrax, like, that whole, like, Not Man shit. I thought that was all awesome and shit like that. This is great. This is like a fucking Doom version of a Killing Joke or something. It kind of has a little bit of a Killing Joke vibe, doesn't it? And why would Killing Joke be in the front of my mind? Maybe because I just played this not too long ago. I've been playing a bunch of shit like that. Anyway, let me show the Meteors records since I'm fucking talking about them. And I really only have a couple. I mean, I haven't been buying a whole shit ton of records. I've also been buying has been Meteors records, other shit I already have. So John told me about how there were, like, different, like, periods and shit in the Meteors, and, like, remember when I was into the shit, I was pretty much done with the Meteors by, like, 1991 or 92. So the internet wasn't even a thing yet at all. So I didn't know anything about this shit. The only thing that I knew about the Meteors was, like, what was on the record covers. I never read any interviews. There was no YouTube, right? So I started looking into this shit, and apparently there's this whole, like, earlier phase where they, like, had this dude Nigel Lewis. I mean, I always knew him as just, like, P. Paul Fennick's band, right? And Fennec kind of has a little bit of reputation of being a dick, I guess. I don't even know where I heard that, but like, for all I know, it's completely undeserved. But I'll probably never meet the guy anyway. But there's also this guy Nigel Lewis in the band, and it's actually, this fucking blew my mind because the song Voodoo Rhythm was on Only the Meteors of Pure Psychobilly. Fucking every note of that is like still like in my flesh, But I never heard this version with the upright bass, and like the effect of it is so different. It just kind of blew my mind. This whole record is fucking fantastic. It's a little bit goofy, especially Nigel's songs, frankly. My Daddy is a Vampire, but You Can't Keep a Good Man Down is fucking awesome. And My Daddy is a Vampire is good too. It's just a little bit, goofy. Beyond that, see, like Graveyard Stomp is kind of goofy, but not so much. Not like King Kurt, like fucking, throwing slime in the audience and shit goofy. Just kind of a little bit, you know what I mean? So this is another one I'd never had before. This one still has Nigel on it too. And the song Radioactive Kid was new to me. And, just great fucking psychobilly shit. I guess Nigel's songs seem to be a little bit more sort of like, not as tight, if that makes sense. Like Fennec's songs are all, it's like really basic like rockabilly shit, right? But it's like there's an attitude and there's a style and it's really tight. And Nigel Lewis's songs seem to sort of meander more around a little bit, and just sort of seem to be generally less focused. They're well played and shit. It's not necessarily sloppy, There are a couple bum notes on the bass actually with no frets, but I've tried to play those fucking things. It's hard, so I'm not talking any shit. But anyway, yeah, so this whole like Nigel Lewis aspect of the Meteors is like new to me. And it's weird because on the one hand, it's like rediscovering a band that like I know and love so well. And I also kind of feel like I don't know the first fucking thing about them. So what else do we have? This is probably the one I've been playing the most, man. This fucking... And both these songs are on Only the Meteors of Pure Psychobilly, right? But these fucking primitive-ass song versions of like mutant rock and shit. I think Nigel Lewis is already out of the band by this time, actually. These are both Paul Fennec songs. But, like, there's, like, this fucking crazy, like... you can't even call it a piano solo. It sounds like someone's fucking, like, banging on it and, like, leaning on it and shit. This fucking crazy way, like, during the guitar solo part of one of these songs. It's fucking fantastic. Yeah, and this is the only other one that I have. This one's new to me. I've never heard that. I've never heard either of these songs before I got this thing recently, so... Yeah, I'm just a dog in electro, and it's all great, man. It's like, between these I have, the songs are all short, but, I can pretend it's about an album's worth of stuff. But you know what it is? It's really cool pieces that I never had before, like, sort of the first time I got into the Meteors. So it's like this whole different aspect, And I have a couple old friends coming in the mail now, too, but, that's, like, rediscovering this old band has proven to be a much more sort of, deep and rich experience than I expected. If you're like one of John's parents or something like that, if you could talk him into doing a special like on the Meteors, I'll bet Bip Bop Boom, if he did like a feature on the Meteors, he could like cover that shit and really talk about it, and like I would learn something. So no pressure or anything. Okay, so here's another one. This is like a cornerstone of like my punk collection anymore, though. This fucking Pagans record. And this is that 2000-ish reissue of the Pink album. I don't have an original. But this is just so good, man. It's lo-fi, but it's like earnest and it's like thoughtful, and they do all sorts of interesting shit. And it's like they're good players, but like they're not going to be held back by limitation in their skill either. You know what I'm saying? But this is one of the fucking and there's actually a little story about this one too, because when I was at Cleveland State, I was in different choral groups at the time or something like that. And I was in one group, it was an early music group, and there was a guy there who was on the radio station. I was on the paper at Cleveland State, and he was at the radio station, this dude named Chaz Smith, right? Like, there's a punchline coming because I used his last name, right? Anyway, so I sort of became friends with him and a couple other people he hung out with, and, sort of in the group, and, like, we hung out a little bit outside and that sort of thing, smoke weed and shit like that, right? Yeah, but like, I knew he was into like the music, and he like played and shit. And I asked like, if he'd been in any bands I might know about, and he mentioned Venus Envy, okay, which is another Cleveland band. They put out A12, which isn't really worth anything, and it's good, but it's not like mind blowing. I was like, okay, whatever. Well, so a few years go by, right? I finally get my hands on this Pagan record, and fucking my guy's like playing on the fucking Pink album. So it's weird. Now it's not like we're tight, you know what I mean? It's like I don't want to like sit here and make this a story about how yeah, me and these fucking rock stars are buddies. It's more just like first of all the fact that Cleveland is just so small when it comes to this kind of shit, right? But more than that, just sort of a story of like running into someone where you share this love of music and you're really into it, and later on find out the guy played on one of the greatest records ever. I mean, I don't know if it's a common story or not, I guess, but it's kind of a fun story. I really like Chaz. He's no longer with us apparently, but we lost touch anyway. I moved to San Francisco, so that's kind of that. Last time I talked with the guy would have been '94. All right, so what else are we doing here? There's a little bit of a disappointment, okay? So I've been talking about this Cleveland shit because, I mean, the Cleveland shit is like a big chunk of like what I still have anymore anyway. Like, I mean, here's another one that I just listened to. Fucking Rocket from the Tombs record. This is so good. These recordings are so good. Any way you get a hold of them, either this or like that Jack Slack boot. Actually, want to hear a story about the fucking Rocket from the Tombs? We'll just make this Metal Theologian story hour, okay? So this record, the only reason I hesitate to say that you should run out and buy it immediately is because I happen to see what the vinyl's going for now, and it bums me out because this is just one of the not only some of the best, but some of the most important fucking recordings ever made. You know what I mean? It's like these guys get hyped a lot if you hear about like Cleveland underground shit, but these guys really deserve the hype. You know what I mean? It's like you listen to the Electric Eels, and I love the fucking Eels. Okay, don't like get me wrong for a second here, but it's like you can kind of hear when they're running out of ideas a little bit if you actually listen to like one of the albums that's come out posthumously, right? This thing is just awesome the whole way through, you know what I mean? My only gripe about this was that if y'all know the Jack Slack sort of semi-bootleg, that was the only thing by Rocket from the Tombs you could get on vinyl until this thing came out. The intro on the bonus 7-inch for Ain't It Fun had this little, like Peter Lawford doing this little dedication to Jane Scott, who was like sort of a local Cleveland like radio personality. Her claim to fame was that she interviewed the Beatles the first time they came to Cleveland, like for the Plain Dealer or whatever. So she used to come to the record store that I worked at when I was in my late teens. So I met Jane a few times. She was like kind of senile and shit, but she was super nice. I remember she was telling me one time that Rod Stewart was a really good egg. That just seemed like such a funny thing to say. So anyway, there's a little dedication to Jane Scott. If you're from Cleveland and are kind of in the know a little bit on this kind of shit, you missed that on that. Otherwise, this is tremendous. Okay, I'm gonna put it on for a couple minutes. So for the longest time, like originally, when you would hear about this shit, right, you could only get it like if you knew the right person to trade tapes with. Like that was long before the shit was on my radar, by the way. Just to be clear, I'm not that hip. By the time I heard about them, I basically heard about them because of Clinton Halen's book. And actually, shortly after I moved to San Francisco, at a local shop, I found the Life Stakes LP, which is the one on that sort of bootleg label. So that was the only way you could get that shit for a long time. Okay? Like, basically, the whole, like, Rocket from the Tombs, people would have forgotten about them. They would have completely sunk into obscurity if it hadn't been for this one piece of vinyl, because that's literally all there was, So, anyway, so this thing comes out. It's a much better package. It's more complete. I have one gripe, and I already told you what it is. It's just that little spoken intro on Ain't It Fun, and frankly, it's not that important, okay? This is tremendous, this record. This is easily the best package I've seen for these recordings. But I had like a 45 with a couple of those bootleg things, right? And I was trying to make some money, so I put it on eBay, right? And I get this, it gets reported, right? It's like a bootleg, and I was like, what the fuck? First of all, no one gives a shit about bootlegs on eBay. Second of all, what the fuck? And I don't remember how I got it, but it turned out it was Smog Veil Records on the grounds that like they had the rights to the thing, and I was selling this bootleg, right? So I was pissed because like I mean, first of all, I was pissed, right? But even after that, sort of the principle of it, from my standpoint, was this is the standard now. Those older records, that 45 and that LP, those are just like curios for like the past when that was all there was. You know what I mean? Like if you're really sort of a diehard like me, then you hang on to that shit for the hell of it, right? So I went on some forum about like Cleveland shit, and I bitched. I was like, does anyone else think that it's unseemly that this guy's like going after people for selling bootlegs when that was the only way you could get it for a long time? And like, I don't remember. The guy like saw the post and kind of said, fuck you back. But we sort of, but basically, I don't know. I don't remember which one of us was more mature first, because frankly, I was kind of a dick at that point in time. But I explained to him, I was like, look, dude, and this is true, this is not a fucking exaggeration. I was like, as of this writing, I have personally sold 3 copies of this thing to friends of mine, because everyone I fucking talk to, I hype this goddamn record until they buy it. You know, this is totally love. I just don't think it's right what you're doing, sort of trying to like push this one out of existence. So the guy turned out being totally cool, and like, if there is a moral to the story, if there are 2 morals. First of all, don't be a dick. That's always the moral to every story, really. So the real moral of the story is just like, don't get so fucking hung up that you can't make nice, because nothing but props and respect to Smog Vale. I don't even think the label's around anymore, but dude was a stand-up guy, and you know, we worked our shit out. But like in retrospect, the idea that I had beef with someone from a fucking record label seems so stupid. Like, it's actually a little bit embarrassing, but fuck it, I come on here to play the clown anyway, so what the hell difference does it make? If you're watching 16 minutes into this fucking video, you're probably a sucker for this kind of entertainment yourself, right? So just to hype the Rockets a little bit more, in case you're not already in the know, which you probably are, but basically Per Ubu and the Dead Boys both had their roots in Rocket from the Tombs, and a lot of these songs got reworked as by one of the other bands. So like so like Life Stinks was redone on the first Per Ubu LP. They did a 45 of 30 seconds over Tokyo. That's all on here. They might have done Muckraker too. Then Sonic Reducer was on the Dead Boys album, and Never Gonna Kill Myself Again, they worked and changed the title to Caught with the Meat in Your Mouth. But it was basically the same song. Then Final Solution, Per Ubu did. So yeah, so a lot of the shit, like if you already like have some of these like, I mean, I would say major punk rock records if we're talking Per Ubu and the Dead Boys, but you know, maybe they're not quite seen as at the same level as the Sex Pistols or the Ramones, both of them I think are way worse. Why would you listen to the Ramones when you can listen to this? Actually, I'm just kidding. Especially because given how much I've been listening to the Meteors, I actually totally get the Ramones. I think the principal reason that I've never been much of a Ramones fan, excuse me, it's a fucking soda, is timing. Because when I got into the Ramones, I had already gotten into the Misfits. And the Misfits are more my taste. The Misfits, like that whole like horror thing that the Misfits were about, like, you know, the fucking Crimson Ghost and shit, I ate that shit up. Like, I fucking went out and tried to watch all those movies they fucking had songs. I like that shit anyway, right? It was like, oh, well, there's a song with it called Monster from Green Hell. I better check that out, you know what I mean? It sucks, by the way. It's really kind of not worth your time. But it kind of is, too, is the thing, you know? Anyway, it was like, by the time I heard the Ramones, to me they sounded like the Misfits without the image, you know what I mean? And I got so much mileage out of the image, it just felt like the Misfits minus, you know? I know historically this isn't how it shook out, by the way, so... I mean, even Glenn Danzig would probably cop to that, too. Then again, maybe I'm imputing Gene Simmons-like motivations to him, so... I don't know that he's a particularly nice guy or anything, but he's not Gene Simmons, you know? Here's another Cleveland one, man. This record, when it turns up, it's cheap, okay? Like, there are a lot of these in circulations, the Easter Monkeys. Just fucking buy this record if you see it. It's a punk record, right? But it's raw. It's more like this than like, you know, that shit out of New York on Sire Records. I'm pulling this out because I want to show you the fucking logo. I think this is so awesome for the Easter Monkeys. Actually, I should, you know, Marty Warren makes t-shirts. I should ask him about making Easter Monkeys shirts. Just with that. The monkey with the cross is perfect for the Easter Monkeys. I would wear the shit out of that. Yeah. Great record. Lousy cover. I actually flew to Cleveland from Austin, Texas for a 15-minute Easter Monkeys set once. That's because I was able to sort of exploit a situation at work for a plane ticket, and yeah, that's kind of a complicated story. I would tell it, but it's not very interesting. I already told you the interesting part. Although it was also on that trip that I discovered Nucleon, which, if you're Mikey Bananas, check out Nucleon. So anyway, since I've been listening to the Stranglers, I gave these guys another chance. This is another band that I've never really loved. In fact, I've kind of... I kind of like to say it to be a dick, that, I like the Dome records better than I like the fucking Wire records, just because these are a little bit more obscure. But, I do love these Dome records, and I like them more than Wire, I really do. They're just kind of more, they're more like what I wish Wire sounded like. They're a little bit more sort of abstract, a little more experimental. And I kind of feel like Wire is like... the last time I played this, I probably enjoyed it more than I've ever enjoyed any Wire album since I got tired of that just sort of the really basic punk rock, at which point in my life I thought Pink Flag was the shit, okay? So the more sort of serious Wire, like the one after this one, I want to say 138, I think I'm thinking of the Misfits, whatever it's called, that album with the number. And this one, I kind of felt like, well, this, I'd had the other ones, so I bought this one the most recently, again, giving them a chance. Different angle, you know what I mean? And this is probably the first time that I listened to these guys and did not feel like they sounded like a less up-itself version of Bauhaus. So, that's a good thing, because there are things to like. I think Bauhaus kind of sucks because I think they're up themselves, but, I don't know. I don't love Wire, but I feel like I've made a little bit of progress on the way there, you know what I mean? So, this ain't it fun, so. Played this one, Igor Wakovich, I think his name is. Logos. You know something? I got these records because, Aaron Dillaway at Hanson Records, he had on his list one time, it said, I just got a few copies of these fucking things in and I can't believe it, these are so fucking badass. And I was like, oh shit, okay, well I guess I better not pass on that opportunity, right? And frankly I was right, because they've kind of gone up in value since I bought them, but they're great, just weirdo, abstract, kind of more like modern classical. There's a lot of shit that almost sounds choral, but even the choral shit just doesn't quite sound right, you know what I mean? So... yeah, it's early 70s stuff. I have it over in my punk section, which I think I'm going to start calling my rock pop section, because I'm selling the prog shit, which was the rock pop, so. I kind of like the idea of, this being in rock pop, right? Hey, but speaking of rock pops, we're going to hype another record again, and that's this one. Now, this is just a metal record, okay? So bread and butter Metal Theologian shit. I think it's going to be the last one I hype for tonight, too, but check this shit out. Look at how shitty that is, dude. And look at them. But see, there's one little tell, and that's right here. There's a quality guarantee. This album does not contain a cover version of Born to Be Wild. I've talked about this record before, but I just want you to look at how shitty this record looks again. And believe me when I say that this record is a fucking gem, and it probably won't set you back more than $10 because it looks so rotten. It didn't even have a decent logo. And it's on Mausoleum, but it's awesome, man. And that's my words of wisdom for today. Fucking buy Underdog, Rabies in Town. Next time you want a metal record. But if you want something that isn't a metal record, Rocket from the Tombs. Yeah, and I think we're gonna leave it there. Oh, you know what? I didn't even fucking get to the other band I've been listening to a ton. The fucking Residents. I've listened to Residents 2 or 3 records every day. I don't know. You know what's awesome about the Residents? I've always loved the Residents, and the Third Reich and Roll was the record that was really kind of the key for this. But all their fucking songs are totally simple pop songs. As far as the structure goes, they're just executed in such a weird way that they sound super weird and awesome, man. But yeah, next time you're listening to Residents, if you haven't done this before, think about how it's just pop songs. And it's like twice as good almost. And in a way half as good, but really only twice as good. Alright. Thanks for watching. That's what I've got for today. See you next time. With more Meteors records realistically.